I never imagined that the moment my life ended would become the moment everything finally made sense. For years, I carried questions I was too embarrassed to voice, even to the man I had been married for over 2 decades, serving in ministry, smiling through conferences, teaching other couples how to communicate, yet silently drowning in my own confusion about I kept telling myself it wasn't important, that everyone struggled, that the uneasiness in my heart was normal. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't have the courage to face it. The day I died began like I remember the ordinary details, the soft morning light, the quiet routine, the way my husband kissed my forehead before. Nothing warned me that within hours my heart would fail, my breath would stop, and I would cross a threshold no human can. One moment I felt my body collapsing, and the next I was standing in a place that felt both familiar and impossibly. Everything was clearer, sharper, more real than life itself. Then I saw him. Jesus didn't approach me with thunder or distance. He came with a presence so overwhelming in love that I couldn't speak. His eyes met mine as if he had known every moment of my life, all the prayers, all the grief, all the silent questions I could never articulate. For the first time in years, I didn't feel shame. I felt seen. "Come," he said, as if inviting me into a conversation he had been waiting to have. "There are things you've carried in your heart for far too long, and my people are carrying them too." I felt my soul tremble, not in fear but in recognition. I knew exactly what he meant before he spoke another word. "I want to show you the boundaries of holy intimacy, Jesus." Because many marriages, even faithful, are unknowingly harming themselves without understanding. In that moment, I realized everything I believed about intimacy was about to be and nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same. Before my death, most people would have looked at my marriage and assumed we had everything figured out. We were the couple others pointed to as an example of stability. We served in ministry together, hosted small groups in our living room, and prayed with couples who came to us in crisis. On the outside, it all looked whole. But behind closed doors, there were cracks we didn't know how to talk about, places where silence felt safer than honesty, and wounds we kept pretending would heal themselves with time. Intimacy was the one area we never managed to navigate well, and each year it became harder to ignore the ache that lingered between us. I carried shame about my questions, believing that good Christians weren't supposed to struggle with things like desire, comfort, or boundary. David carried his own confusion but tried to be strong for both of us. We loved each other deeply, yet we tiptoed around the very thing that was meant to bond us. Every attempt at conversation ended with us feeling misunderstood or embarrassed. We turned to the church for clarity, but what we found only deepened our confusion. One pastor insisted nearly everything was sinful. Another told us anything was allowed as long as we were married. A third avoided the subject completely, as if acknowledging it might threaten his dignity. So we did what so many couples do. We survived by staying quiet. But quiet doesn't cure anything. Quiet only hides the truth long enough for it to harden. When Jesus looked at me during my NDE, I felt him address this unspoken struggle with a tenderness that disarmed me completely. "My people are suffering in silence because they're afraid to ask the real question," he said. "They've been taught to feel shame instead of curiosity, fear instead of understanding. And the wounds they hide in their marriages are keeping them from the intimacy I designed for them." Hearing him say that felt like someone finally naming a pain I had carried for years. I realized this wasn't just my story. This was a quiet epidemic in Christian homes everywhere, marriages built on love but weakened by confusion, shame, and silence. And that was why his boundaries mattered so deep. Not to restrict, but when Jesus began to speak about what defiles holy intimacy, his voice carried both sorrow and authority, as if he had watched generations of marriages crumble under weights they were never meant to. He didn't start with a list of forbidden acts or harsh reprimand. Instead, he showed me scenes, moments from real marriages, real hearts, real wounds, each one revealing how something sacred can slowly be poisoned without either spouse realizing why the connection begins to fade. The first thing he showed me was betrayal, not only in the obvious sense of physical unfaithfulness, but in subtler, quieter forms people barely acknowledge. I saw a husband scrolling through images at night, convincing himself it wasn't really cheating. I saw a wife messaging an old friend, sharing secrets she no longer shared with her spouse. Betrayal begins long before bodies touch, Jesus said. It begins where loyalty fractures, in desire, in imagination, in emotional secrecy. His words pierced through every excuse I had once made for the compromise. Next, he showed me the damage caused by bringing outsiders, physically, emotionally, or digitally, into what was meant to be a sanctuary for two. In one moment, I saw a couple inviting a third person into their intimacy, convinced it would add excitement. Instead, I watched insecurity, comparison, and spiritual heaviness flood the room like smoke. In another scene, I saw a husband fantasizing about someone else while lying beside his wife, unaware that he was creating spiritual fractures every time he drifted away in thought. Intimacy cannot flourish, Jesus said, when the marriage bed becomes a stage instead of a sanctuary. Then he revealed the harm of coercion and pressure, the places where one spouse forces or manipulates the other into acts they are uncomfortable. He showed husbands who believed persistence counted as leadership and wives who believed compliance counted as holiness. Love never demands what consent does not freely give, he said gently. Where pressure exists, intimacy dies. He also showed me practices rooted in exploitation, harm, or imitation of what the world calls pleasure. I saw couples unknowingly bringing darkness into their marriage by adopting behaviors shaped by industries built on addiction, exploitation, and spiritual corruption. I could almost feel the heaviness that settled over them. When you imitate what wounds others, Jesus said, you invite the residue of that harm into your own home. Finally, he showed me the influence of media, the way images, stories, and entertainment reshape desire until holy intimacy begins to feel in it. I saw couples comparing themselves to strangers, chasing fantasy instead of connection. This contamination is subtle, he warned, but it is powerful. It steals the purity of desire by replacing your spouse with shadows. As each scene faded, he looked at me with eyes full. My people do not fall into darkness suddenly, he said. They drift when they stop guarding what is sacred. I am showing you these things so marriages can awaken before they break. After showing me what corrupts intimacy, Jesus shifted the atmosphere. The heaviness of those scenes faded, and what replaced it was clarity, like someone lifting a veil I didn't even realize had been covering my understanding. He said there was a simple framework that every married couple, no matter their background, personality, or history. My design is not confusing, he said gently. It is people who complicate what I intended to be clear. Then he gave me 3 principles, 3 pillars that would reshape everything I believed about intimacy. The first was straightforward. Is it prohibited in Scripture? As he spoke, it wasn't a legalistic rule, but a reminder that God had already drawn certain lines to protect his. Jesus showed me a couple who justified harmful choices by saying, the Bible doesn't mention this directly, but as they drifted into practices rooted in selfishness and exploitation, their connection. Where I have spoken clearly, he said, my people must trust that my boundaries are good. Obedience is not restriction, it is safety. The second pillar broadened the conversation. Is it beneficial or is it harmful? I watched scenes of couples trying things that were not inherently forbidden yet slowly becoming sources of distance. In one, a wife agreed to something she didn't understand, hoping it would make her husband happy, only to feel invisible after. In another, a husband encouraged a practice that later became a dependency, overshadowing tender, simple connection. Not everything permissible is good, Jesus said. My people must learn to ask whether a choice draws them closer or quietly tears them apart. Then came the third and most emphasized. Do both spouses genuinely consent? Jesus' tone grew deeply serious as he showed me marriages where one partner pushed, manipulated, or guilted the other into something they weren't ready for. Even without force, the pressure was enough to fracture trust. I created intimacy to be mutual, he said. When one person feels afraid, obligated, or unseen, the act may be physical, the union does not occur. Consent is not optional, it is sacred. Each pillar felt like a lifeline, simple enough for any couple to remember, strong enough to guide them through. Jesus looked into my eyes and said, when my people use these 3 questions honestly, they will know the truth. And truth will protect what is meant to be holy. After Jesus finished explaining the boundaries, something unexpected happened. The atmosphere around us softened as if a weight had lifted. For the first time since my death, I felt a swelling sense of hope rising inside me. Jesus wasn't simply warning me about what harms intimacy. He wanted me to understand the freedom that exists within the covenant. His expression shifted from solemn to almost joyful. He said, now let me show you what intimacy was always meant to be. In an instant, I saw a married couple laughing together in their living room. No pressure, no fear, no comparison, just 2 people who enjoyed one another. Jesus said, when intimacy is rooted in love, trust, and holiness, it becomes a wellspring of joy, not a source of confusion. I realized how many of us walk into marriage believing pleasure is either shameful or something that must look like what portrays. But he made it clear, the world teaches performance, he teaches connection. He showed me another couple, older, comfortable in their own skin, moving with a tenderness that spoke louder than any. There was nothing flashy or dramatic, yet their unity radiated peace and affection. This, Jesus said, is beauty the world cannot manufacture. It is the fruit of safety, patience, and true knowing. It struck me how often we chase novelty because we're afraid of vulnerability, when in truth, the most meaningful intimacy grows from emotional closeness, not spectacle. Then he reminded me that within covenant boundaries, creativity is not only allowed but celebrated. I saw couples discovering each other in ways unique to their relationship, not copying, not comparing, not trying to recreate scenes from screens or stories. Each marriage had its own rhythm, its own language of affection, its own ways of expressing desire. I did not design intimacy to be limited or stiff, Jesus said. I designed it to be explored with joy, guided by love, free from shame. He emphasized emotional safety as the foundation, showing me how couples flourished when they felt truly seen, valued, and unafraid of judgment. When a spouse felt cherished, not pressured, desired, not compared, honored, not used, intimacy blossomed naturally. In this freedom, he explained, there is no need for competition with the world's standards because nothing the world offers can match the sacred pleasure I created for two hearts bound in covenant. As he revealed these moments, awe washed over me. I had spent so many years believing intimacy had to fit either rigid rules or worldly expectations, but Jesus showed me something entirely different, something beautiful. Intimacy wasn't meant to be feared or forced. It was meant to be celebrated, protected, and enjoyed as a gift designed for two souls becoming one. As Jesus continued, his expression deepened with a kind of holy seriousness, and I sensed we were stepping into a truth far more profound than anything I had understood before. He said, Nicole, intimacy was never merely physical, it was always spiritual first. The moment he spoke those words, something opened in my understanding, as if a veil had been pulled back and I was seeing a dimension of marriage I had lived inside but never fully perceived. He showed me a husband and wife holding each other after years of hardship, and as they embraced, I saw threads of light weaving between them, living, moving, strengthening. This is what happens, Jesus said, when intimacy honors my boundaries. Your spirits knit together, your trust grows, your unity becomes stronger than any storm around you. The light between them pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat, and I felt the beauty of a bond that wasn't just emotional but eternal. Then the scene shifted. I saw another couple, outwardly affectionate but inwardly distant. As they drew near each other physically, the threads between them flickered and dimmed. Shadows slipped in, shame from past choices, memories of comparison, the residue of influences that didn't belong in their covenant. Nothing violent or dramatic, just a quiet heaviness draining their connection. Jesus said, the same pathways that carry love can also carry pain when boundaries are crossed. Intimacy magnifies whatever is present, whether holiness or harm. He showed me moments from my own marriage, both the tender ones and the ones I wanted to forget. I saw the nights David and I had come together with open hearts. The light between us was warm and steady, but then I saw the times we had acted from pressure, imitation, or the lingering imprint of things we never should have brought into our home. During those moments, the light dimmed and I felt a shadow I had never been able to name. Seeing it through Jesus' eyes broke something open in me. This is why I care so deeply, he said. Not because I wish to restrict you, but because I want to protect what is most sacred. When intimacy flows from purity, it becomes healing. It restores, binds wounds, renews the covenant again and again. But when it is shaped by the world, it fractures the very bond it was meant to strengthen. A wave of conviction and relief washed over me. I finally understood that holy intimacy wasn't just about bodies, it was about souls. And the choices we make echo far beyond the moment itself. The moment Jesus finished speaking, I felt a sudden pull, gentle but unmistakable, drawing me away from the place where we stood. His eyes held mine, steady and full of purpose, and he said, I am sending you back because my people need to hear this. Too many marriages are suffering in silence. Too many hearts are carrying shame they were never meant to bear. Go and tell them what I have shown you. Show them that my design leads to healing, not restriction. Before I could respond, everything around me dissolved into blinding light. The next thing I knew, breath tore back into my lungs. Voices shouted my name, hands pressed against my chest. My body felt heavy and trembling, but I was alive. When I opened my eyes, I understood instantly. I didn't return by accident. I returned on assignment. As I recovered, the weight of Jesus' words settled deep in my spirit. This wasn't just a revelation for me. It was a message meant for marriages everywhere. So now I speak directly to you, the one listening, the one who maybe carries questions or wounds of your own. Jesus wants intimacy in your marriage to flourish, not falter. He wants the shame that has lingered for years to lose its grip. He wants the confusion to lift. He wants your heart and your spouse's heart to find safety again. Remember the 3 pillars he gave me. Is it prohibited in Scripture? Is it beneficial or harmful? Do both of you genuinely consent? These questions are not meant to police your marriage. They are meant to protect it. They are simple enough to guide you, powerful enough to free you, and wise enough to keep your intimacy anchored in love rather than fear or comparison. You do not have to repeat the patterns that have wounded you. You do not have to carry the things that contaminated your marriage bed. You are allowed to begin again. Jesus offers restoration, not condemnation, and he delights in seeing couples rediscover each other with tenderness, purity, and joy. If anything in your marriage has drifted outside his design, you can turn back today with honesty, humility, and hope. The moment you do, healing begins. And intimacy, the way God created it, becomes not a burden, but a blessing you were always meant to experience together.